Bonjour class, today we're learning about regular RE verbs. This is the last set of regular verbs, so once you've mastered this, we're done with those. So let's take a look at today's lesson. We're going to learn what a regular RE verb is, how to conjugate a regular RE verb, and then what some common regular RE verbs are. So really quickly, what is a regular RE verb? It's probably pretty obvious by now because we're not very original with how we name our verbs, but just like how a regular ER verb ends in the letters ER and a regular IR verb ends in the letters IR, a regular RE verb is just any verb that ends in the letter RE. There are some exceptions, which we'll talk about in the next video, but overall, most verbs that end in RE will follow the same pattern. So how do we conjugate a regular RE verb? Remember that conjugating a verb means taking it from the infinitive and making it match a certain subject. So step one, we drop the RE ending. This is very similar to the way to conjugate an ER and an IR verb. Then we need to add the correct ending at the end to make up for dropping the RE. For je, the ending will be S. For tu, the ending is also S. Il, elle, and on have no ending. You just keep it however it looks with the R and the E at the end gone. For nous, we add ONS. For vous, we add EZ. And for il and elle in the plural, we add ENT. You'll notice that these three, for nous, vous, and il, elle, look very similar to how we would conjugate a regular ER verb. So it's the same for RE. The one that's different between ER verbs and RE verbs are these three, for je, tu, and il, elle, on. So let's take a look at an example. We have the verb attendre, which we'll learn on the next slide means to wait. Step one, we cross off the RE, and then we're left with what's called our stem. That's whatever's left of the verb once we get rid of the ending. So in this case, it's attend, A-T-T-E-N-D, and then you can see underlined, that's how we're going to start each of our conjugations, with that stem. From that stem, we have to add the endings that we talked about in the last slide. So like we said, for je, you add an S at the end, so it becomes j'attends. For tu, you also add an S at the end, tu attends. For il and elle, you don't add anything at the end, so we're just left with whatever's here after we get rid of RE, and this is also pronounced attend. For nous, we add ONS, so it becomes nous attendons. For vous, we add EZ, so it becomes vous attendez. And for il, elle in the plural, we add ENT, so it becomes attend. So this is an example of how the conjugation works that we talked about on the last slide. So what are some common regular RE verbs where we'll get to use this conjugation? There's a lot. We're not going to go through the conjugation for each one because they all follow the same pattern, so you can practice that on your own, but we will talk about some of the definitions here. First, we have attendre. That was our example from the last slide, and like I said, that means to wait. We have descendre, which means to go downstairs. Entendre, which means to hear. Perdre, which means to lose. Perdre son temps, which is very similar. It means to waste one's time, so it's kind of like you've lost your time. Rendre or rendre à. If you just have rendre without this a, it means to give back or to return. If you add the à after it, it means that you're giving something back to someone or returning to someone. Because we've learned before this à accent grave, that means to. We have rendre visite à, which means to visit someone. Répondre à. Again, just the répondre by itself would mean to respond or to answer, but adding the à afterward makes it to respond to or to answer to. And then lastly, we have vendre, which means to sell. You can kind of remember this one because if you think about it in English, if you have a vendor, like if you're talking about a food vendor, that's somebody who sells something. So take a moment to write these down so that you're familiar with recognizing these and their vocabulary definitions. Et ça c'est tout. Go ahead and make sure that you have all the conjugation and the vocabulary written down in your notes.